Hey, Dr. Brett here. I want to talk about something pretty serious. And, I do a lot of sports psychology, I do a lot of life coaching, but I am a licensed psychologist and I have spent 30,000 hours or more helping people of all kinds, not just athletes and entrepreneurs, but pretty much everybody under the sun. Getting a doctor, it's just a long road. There's a lot of training. I've worked in hospital settings. I worked in clinics. I've done private practice for decades. I've worked with so many people that have had anxiety and depression, including many athletes that have gone through it as well. And so I just want to talk real briefly, especially now in this time of COVID, when so many people are experiencing some form of anxiety or depression, how to fundamentally recognize it and handle it. If you're starting to slide into a depression, your energy's low, your appetite isn't the same, or maybe you have some kind of sleep disturbance. It's really hard to sleep. You're feeling a little bit helpless or hopeless, or you're having a lot of negative thoughts, or you're having issues around your self-esteem and self-worth. These are some of the signs and symptoms of depression. In clinical depression, we need 5 or more of those symptoms for 2 weeks or longer to make that sort of fundamental diagnosis. But just in life in general, we want to pay attention, right? We want to be as self-aware as possible and notice if our mood has changed, or our appetite has changed, or our sleep has changed, or if we're feeling particularly negative and hopeless. And the first thing we want to do more than anything is not try to handle it entirely on our own. We want to reach out for help. Obviously, professional help would probably be the best way of doing it. There are clinics for people that have that are more affordable for people that can't afford, like, a psychologist that might be more expensive in private practice. But we want to find someone, whether it's a counselor or someone in our life that we can talk to about it, so that we're not so alone. Really, the being alone is a huge vulnerability. Not reaching out for help is actually probably more common than not. The other thing we want to do with depression is we want to find a way to exercise, especially for any kind of mild or moderate depression. Exercise is as effective, if not more effective, than antidepressants, and it has a tremendous long-term impact. I'm sort of ambivalent about medications in general. I understand, stimulants have value, but antidepressants in particular, it's a $10 billion a year industry, and a lot of times it can be necessary to give people that sort of biochemical support that they need to go through something, really intense, like a moderate or severe depression. But for the most part, we can actually handle depression, especially if it's mild or even moderate. Through daily exercise can make a huge impact. It'll increase our serotonin levels and our dopamine levels, and it'll actually make us feel good and make us feel healthier and more alive. We also want to pay attention to our diet, because a lot of times when we start to slide into a depression, things sort of snowball and they get worse, and we find ourselves drinking more or smoking more, or doing things that actually exacerbate the depression. I mean, alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. So if you're drinking a lot, you're more likely to wake up feeling depressed, especially the next morning. And you're also more likely to create sleep issues, right? Your sleep won't be as good if you're drinking a lot. So we want to pay attention to our diet. A healthier diet can really support us mentally, psychologically, and emotionally. And then we want to take little actions, because when people get depressed, they often feel overwhelmed. And when they feel overwhelmed, what they really need to do is simplify their lives and take little actions each and every day, instead of taking no action or avoiding. Because a lot of times when people get depressed, they start to avoid. And then when they start to avoid, they get anxious, and now they have anxiety and depression, which is really common. So these are some of the fundamental steps that we can take if we start to notice that we're getting depressed. Hey, I'm Dr. Brett. If you find this video helpful, please share it with someone you know.